Hello, I'm Roger Sudworth. Welcome to this latest edition of Braemar TV. This month we welcome 3,000 visitors to Braemar in one single day. We visit a unique and historic cottage. And in a very special interview, we hear from Captain Alwyn Farquharson, the 16th Laird of Invercold. But first, we return to a little-known remnant of Braemar's past.
Welcome to the unveiling of the plaque organised by the Braemar Local History Group. In a moment I'll invite George Anthony, a former member of the Royal Observer Corps, to tell you all about the bunker, its importance, its significance, and basically what it was used for.
I know there's maybe a chiefy and a couple of observers here today from Braemar Post, so it's nice to see that. This underground post here, we can have a looky down. They started this in the nuclear war from the 1950s, so basically your underground post is in very, very good condition. It was probably some of the last ones to be built. All posts were then finished as of the year 1991. So 10,000 observers, 890 odd posts all closed, and that was the end of the ROC.
June the 7th, 1987 was when I took over running the Mar estate. And I thank you very much for reminding me, it was 4 years in where we got a very funny, complicated key with two sort of bars at 90 degrees. And the biggest padlock I've ever seen fitted this key. And I went to look inside the nuclear shelter. There's a real dynamism going on. And all sorts of things are happening in Braemar. And frankly, I take my hat off to you all. And well done, and a great, great pleasure and honour for me to unveil the plaque.
I thought you were David Edits. Really? Are we splash? Yeah, you will.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Right.
Eventually. So your hand cranker, like you see in World War II, would have given the attack warning red, or the attack warning, or the all clear, and then you should have a maroon which fires off 3 rockets in quick succession, which gave the warning black that there was imminent fallout due. So our job is just really to report what we are seeing here and then feed it on to our headquarters and let them work out a plan of what's going to be a safe area or not. But we had to do mobile monitoring, which was you would be asked to go down to the local village or somewhere like that, or somewhere of interest, and take readings so they could find it, work out if it was safe to put folk that direction or not. But as you can see, pretty solid buildings. And then this is your water pump. Hopefully it's not working because there's still water at the bottom of the pipe here. This is your clock. It should just automatically click round as it is. So that gives you your power off of the battery. So again, every 8 hours or whatever, you have to go and charge the battery up. Fire blanket in the event of a fire. There's not much stuff in here would burn.
I think there is a problem, yes, and that's why people are getting upset about it. But, you know, we want people to come to Braemar. It's a beautiful place. We have lots to see and do, and locals and visitors alike all should be able to enjoy it. But when they come, please clear up. And if you come from local, clear up. Take your stuff home. If you're not local, there are plenty of bins around. So please just clear up. And also, if you're going to light a campfire, please bring fuel with you, because cutting down trees and other things is illegal. It's theft. It belongs to somebody else. And make sure that your fire is out, because otherwise we could have wildfires that cost the countryside a lot. People are leaving anything from tents to bottles to their own human waste. And, you know, campfires that aren't put out properly. So it's a problem. Everybody has a right to access the countryside, and the Code of Practice talks about responsible access, and leaving litter and human waste and cutting down trees is not responsible access. And the National Park in Loch Lomond took action. I don't want to see that happening here. The Cairngorms is here for people to enjoy, but if people don't take their stuff home and clear up, and they steal things, then the people will have to take action.
3:36 new leaders on less 21 elite.
Well, we're out on the fourth day now of the Scottish Six-Day event out in Braemar. We're at the foot of Craig Coinach, the famous hill race hill, but we're using the forests around the sides of it rather than over the top. We're using the Braemar Games car park for our car parking, and we're very grateful to let us use it a month before their big day. And we've got 3,000 people here in the competition, with about 35 different classes and courses. So they're split from very young to the elites, and then the courses shorten again for the oldies. The venue's fantastic, and the comments we're getting from all the competitors is just how beautiful Deeside is. And certainly the first 3 days we were down near Aboyne, but there was someone I knew who was coming down from Braemar, and they said, the drive down the Dee is just fantastic. It's beautiful, all these hills and the forests and the views. So living here, you kind of get used to it and you almost take it for granted. But it's nice to see an outsider's view and how much they appreciate it.
When we first bought the place and we applied for planning permission, we then got contacted by this lady in California who explained to us that her grandmother had lived here and her father lived down the hill at Braeview, and she was born there. And they were Downies, and it was Downies who built this house. And then we found an old map, and on the old map up in the corner it says Downies. So we thought that Downey's cottage it would be. And then when we were clearing up, we also even found some correspondence, and there was a little envelope and it was addressed to Downey's cottage. So we thought, well, we should call it Downey's cottage. I think Tomintoul Croft has become maybe it was a marketing ploy, I don't know, but that's what we're calling it.
What's the history of this place?
Well, not quite sure when it was built. We think it was probably built in about 1840, 1850 by somebody called John Downey. And they came, as far as we understand, they came from Corriemulsey up the Glen, and the house was built, and there was a large family here, and actually when we went in there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 box beds, and I'm sure they accommodated more than one person. So they were here, and then there was two sisters and a brother who lived here, and then one of the sisters had a son, and he built Braeview in 1924, and we think this house was probably abandoned. They died probably in the 1930s, something like that, and the house had really just been left shut up. It was used for a bit of storage, and it had just been abandoned really. The estate sold it about 2006, I think. And we were successful in bidding for it, and it had planning permission to build another house on the sort of footprint of the house in Stedding. But then when we came in and we looked at it, and we saw that it really was a bit of a time capsule, and we then had sort of pangs of conscience about, well, was it the right thing just to knock it down and build another house? So we then ended up having a conversation with the National Park and Historic Scotland, who were very helpful. We said, look, we've got this property, but we don't quite know what to do with it. But actually, we had intended to build a house. So with a long process of discussion and negotiation, what we ended up doing was they agreed that we could build a new house elsewhere on the site, and they would list this property, and we would be under an obligation to restore it. So we entered into that willingly. So that happened in about 2011, 12, I think, by the time we got those permissions. And then since then it's been a slow process. Everything is in and working, and we're just doing a little bit of landscaping round about, putting back some walls which were here before, and trying to tidy up the site a little bit. So yes, I think we're at a stage now where we can get the box ticked off as it being completed. I don't think the house is particularly special, and I think that every house was like this. I think that the special features are such that most of them are gone. You know, most cottages have been demolished and something else built, or they've been restored or changed over time. And I think what's happened here is that this house was in exactly the same state as the way it was built. So it's got the timber hanging lum, the box beds that were there, the heather thatch that was originally on the roof is still there. It was covered with tin, that's the original tin on the roof, but it was covered, I don't know, I suppose that the thatch started to deteriorate, corrugated iron was easily available, the easiest thing to do was to put a tin roof on it, but the whole structure is still there. And upstairs in the attic, they had, which was also used as a living accommodation, that had been all lined with newspapers to try and keep out the drafts and bugs and things. So I think that what's special about it is that everything is still there as it was built, you know, 150, 170 years ago. We're very privileged, we've been very lucky, we've got it here, and the plan is to try and let other people experience it, you know. So hopefully, you know, people will be able to come, they can have a holiday, or alternatively we'll also make it available open to the public. We've had 1 or 2 open days because it's quite an exciting thing to see, it's great.
I was demobilised. I was wounded in 1944 and I didn't get back to the front, and I finished up over here, and I was not demobilised until June of 1946. And then I took so this was unexpected, the inheritance of Tim McCall, really. It happened because my grandfather, Alec Farquharson, died in 1936, and he had 2 daughters but no son. And under the terms of his will, which I knew nothing about, he left Invercargill, first of all, Victor's no longer here, to my mother's elder sister. There were just 2 girls, for her lifetime. Then after her death, she only had 1 daughter, and she didn't have a son, and it was to go to the eldest boy, surviving boy, I suppose, of the next girl, my mother. Well, what actually happened was the Second World War came. Aunt Myrtle, after my grandfather died in 1936, so she succeeded him as Land Chief and life rent. So she couldn't sell the estate, but she was entitled to everything on it, live there and so on. So she did move up and down a bit. She had a house in London. It's very musical and artistic and everything like that. And then the war came. Well, both my mother and her elder sister, my aunt, joined the Women's Voluntary Services. And they went down to London, not together, and Aunt Myrtle, this was 1941, I think, and Aunt Myrtle was in this house in a place called York Terrace off Regent's Park, and a bomb hit it, and she was killed. And I think a member of the staff was killed, and 1 or 2 of the people in the house were buried but dug out and okay after that. So, theoretically, Invercargill then, under my grandfather's will, came to me. But here was I in the army. I think I was on the point of going overseas to finally, I went through the ranks first, joined my father's old regiment, the Royal Scots Greys, which were out in Palestine, and which I duly did. And then, of course, I knew at the time that Invercargill was theoretically coming to me, but there was 5 more years of war. And I went through Alamein and other...
And you got your military cross, I think.
What?
You got a military cross.
Yes, but I didn't get that till I got to France. Anyway, and then after Alamein, we didn't go to Sicily. We went into Salerno on D-Day. My squad leader's boat was sunk going in alongside me. We had quite a time there. And then we were I was adjutant briefly, but I went back into the front line. And we came back then. The regiment hadn't been home for a number of years, since before the war. And we came back, everybody went on leave. We left everything in Italy behind. We had new equipment, new tanks, new everything. And we went into Normandy on D+1. And then I got wounded in July near a place called Caen. And then I came back, and I was in hospital for a long time, came out, and then I finished up the war over here. But then by this time I knew that Invercold was going to be mine, but nothing had happened here really for a very long time, because it was run by, well, my father was one of the trustees, but he was down in Yorkshire and it meant all this, and there was a land agent, of course, G.D. Mingers looking after the place and so on here in the meantime. So not much had happened. I mean, for instance, there was no modernisation anywhere. Cottages, if they had water, it was a tap. No inside sanitation, no electricity, except the places that had or made their own, like the castle and Invercold House, which was not a very modernised electricity. It made it, but so a lot to be done. And so that was when we started trying to do things. And Braemar Castle in those days was usually on lease, and it continued to be on lease in my time. I mean, I remember being told about the stories of days gone by. My grandfather, on occasion, I think, did occasionally come here, but he, rather like me, found it necessary to let the castle out. And so when the big house, where he's owned at Invercold, was also on lease in those days. So he sometimes was down at Cluny Cottage. And so I don't, anyhow, stories of the old days here at the castle, well, I was told by all sorts of people, I don't know the real inside stories, for instance, Seton Gordon, who was an old friend of mine, that a lady called Princess Doldaguruki used to take the castle. And I think her father was a very wealthy man and owned a fishing trawler fleet. And she married a Russian prince. I should imagine rather a penniless one. I don't think he was seen much on the side. And at any rate, she entertained very handsomely. And I know Seton Gordon stayed here in those days with her. And similarly, like in my time, the same sort of situation went on. For instance, John Treadsma was here. In fact, I believe that he was the son of Buchan, John, the famous author, and his wife was a local MP up here in the northeast. And I think one of the children, I don't know if she was actually born in the castle, but was born at the time in the castle. And I believe one of the local ladies from the village, Mrs. Begg, also had a child born here when she was serving as one of the helps in the castle. So those are the sort of days when the castle was on lease. And then gradually as time went by, well, the first thing that happened, it wasn't on lease at this particular moment, was after the King died in 1952, and everybody was a bit worried that the Queen Mother was very well much loved and respected, might go into retreat rather in her sort of in her widowhood. And she was a great friend of my Aunt Doris, a schoolhood friend and all that, and Uncle Clare had a place up the house in Norton Gate, near where the Castle of May was, and that's why she fell in love with it. And Julie bought it and made it her own home, the only place she really owned at all through the whole of her life. And anyhow, at this moment, this particular moment, the Queen obviously was now in residence at Balmoral. So the Queen Mother was going to be at Birk Hall, but it was considered that Birk Hall really wasn't quite, there had to be alterations and extensions a bit to make it more suitable, ready for the Queen Mother. So this was duly in process of being done. But you know what builders are like. Of course, when it came to the time of year, she used to go up to the Castle of May and then down here when she would be coming here. It wasn't going to be ready in time for her. So SOS, what was going to happen? And it duly filtered through to me, and we decided we could probably be of help, but we had to move out of Invercold, and we were going to come here, but was open, so to speak, we could instead. But we had one weekend to clear out, And we had some, I remember we had some American guests, Julie, I think they were coming from Hawaii, in fact. And so it was a busy weekend trying to leave things tidy and everything over there, come into here and get ready and prepared, with bedrooms and everything so prepared. Of course, we had a certain amount of staff ready for our guests to come in. Well, having got in here, we were very happy to be here and all that. And after the season, the Queen Mother was quite a long time. I think she's about seven weeks or more. Didn't go down till in October or something. And so we were here. And then we said, we'll stay on. We'd better stay here for Christmas and the New Year, which we duly did. And I can't remember exactly when we moved back again, so to speak, whether it was in the middle of winter or a little bit later, because we did have a flat down in London. We came to Goshen, we went down there. But we had a happy time here, and I know there were stories sometimes told about Braemar Castle that there were ghosts, and people would hear strange noises and this kind of thing. Yes, I remember our bedroom was sort of on there are 3 bedrooms. There's one at one end with double beds, then there's a single bed in the middle, and then one at the end up there. And we had the one at the end, and my stepdaughter, Marybelle, had the one she had a friend with the double twin beds in it at this end, and at the dressing room, the one in between was my dressing room. It was very comfortable. And yes, occasionally I might have heard some, but really I think it was the flagpole. It's a bit loose and needed tension up at the top, and not a body being dragged down the steps or something of that sort. But I think when the Tweedsmiths were here, one or two of the ladies had a feeling there were ghosts about in the past. But I never saw one here, and I never saw one or felt there might be one. I didn't recall either. It always seemed to be quite a happy place in its way, even though it had a dungeon. And I never heard tales of anybody being desperately treated in a dungeon or anything. I don't know. I know it had a great historic past, but for me it was never an unhappy place. But childhood, well, no, I never really was here much in childhood, so always with my father or on the Isle of Mull. So my memories of childhood, of castle days, are really non-existent.
Today was our annual parish sale. We have one at each end of the parish each year. It's every second year, obviously, down in Crathy, and today it was the time for these sales. The Queen has turned up, I think, most of every second year for the last 70 years or so. Certainly since the 1930s, since before the last war. The Queen seems to be glad to come back every second year to this spot, and sees a lot of the same people. I think she sees a lot of the same stuff by the looks of what's in there. We've got some things that items that appear from time to time almost as if they turn up every second year. I enjoy it. I think it's great, and it's good to see a lot of. It's a very busy time, and I'm not sure that it's, I'm sure there are other things people could be doing with a Saturday, but in August. But this is a great thing to do, and a lot of folk get together, and it's become a bit of an institution. Well, that's it again for another month. If you enjoyed the programme, let us know. And please, if you have any suggestions, get in touch with us. So that's it for another month, and from me, Roger Sudworth, it's bye-bye for now, and from our beautiful little village of Braemar.